Good morning, everybody. It is Monday, December 8th, which means we have 17 days until Christmas, which means we have 17 more days to help people buy and sell houses. And I was talking to an agent this morning who said, I got a new listing. It's really hot. I think I'm going to wait till next week or the beginning of the year to start promoting it. And I said, what are you talking about? You got a new listing, you promote it now. If nobody's online to watch it, then do it again at the end of the year. But don't stop doing business now because it's close to the holidays. People are still buying and selling, as you've seen on Chris's demonstrations when he pulls up the stellar MLS and says, "Oh my God, thousands of people listed their houses last week, and thousands of people bought houses last week." So time is there; it's all for our taking. So let's get into it. We're gonna do something a little different today. I don't know if it's gonna take the whole half hour, but I'll certainly finish on time. This weekend, I was watching YouTube and little videos kept popping up, and one popped up with Robert Kiyosaki. He was doing an interview, and Robert Kiyosaki is he's the guy that wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad, and he's talking about having money work for you. And he went through this whole thing about how his rich dad taught him to do things, and his poor dad taught him to do other things. And his rich dad taught him to be an entrepreneur. And guess how he became super wealthy? In real estate. And he talked about buying real estate with no money down. And there's a way to do that. And so we're going to cover some of those topics today. And I'm going to give you an assignment so that at the end of this class today, you'll have a little bit of passion to go do some research. And when you find something that's good, you're going to have an asset to sell. And I'll tell you how we're going to do that. So I did write notes, lots of them. So I'm going to kind of read some of the stuff that I wanted to make sure I got all the points down. So the second video I watched was probably an AI, artificial intelligence view of Elon Musk talking about the economy and cash and how cash is going to become worth less because of inflation. And you're kind of foolish to be sitting on cash when you could be buying hard assets that are going to be appreciating. So, there's two 40-minute videos I summarized into 3 minutes of an opening talk. But when Elon Musk says something, probably the richest man in the world, and Robert Kiyosaki, who is famous for his books on the cash flow quadrant, are given the same advice in the same YouTube channel, I said, maybe there's something there. So I thought that'd be a very good topic for real life real estate. So let's face it, some people can't buy, and some people simply don't want to own real estate. And that's okay. Not everybody does. But what does everybody have to do? They have to live somewhere. So if you're not going to own a home and you're not going to rent a home, the only other option I think is to move in with family. So that's it. So if you're not going to buy a home, you're going to rent a home. Then I started thinking, but it costs money, to buy an investment loan. Let's just be safe and say you need 20% down. And now that an average house costs 400,000 bucks, 20% is $80,000. So I started thinking to myself, I said, self, how many people have 80,000 bucks laying around? And self said back, not a lot of people have 80,000 bucks sitting around. And then I corrected myself and I thought, wait a minute. Almost everybody that lives around me has $80,000 laying around. Think about it. How could that be possible? So I wrote down here, most people have equity in their homes, and that equity of their home is false value. It's just sitting there not doing anything. Where it could, there you go, Rachel, right on track. Equity. Everybody's sitting on equity, not everybody. The majority of people are sitting on equity. And that equity, based on these two videos, is doing you no good. It's false. And that equity is becoming worth less, not worthless, worth less as inflation comes up because a loaf of bread costs more and a gallon of gas costs more and all that other stuff has to happen. So we're going to tell a story, and I'm making a story today about Paul and Sue. Paul and Sue bought a house in 2015, and they bought it for $250,000. And I made up these numbers and I made up Paul and Sue. But for my example, is it likely that somebody in your neighborhood bought a house for $250,000 10 years ago? Probably for less than that, and it's probably worth more than that. But if they did, and that house is now worth $400,000, they have about $150,000 in equity, right? No, they have more than 150,000 in equity. Why? Because their loan is amortizing and they've now made principal payment reductions for 10 years. So they probably have $230,000 left on their loan balance, not 250, or they might have put a bigger down payment than we know. But let's use the 230 value of their mortgage, assuming they made principal reductions for 10 years. So now they've got $230,000 in debt on an asset worth $400,000. So that's $170,000 in equity. How many people know they're sitting on $170,000 in equity? Now I'm going to take you back to a broker briefing we did, or I did a couple weeks ago. And it was a quote I got from a Tom Ferry thing. And he said, people are overfed with information, but they're starving for knowledge. So one of the things we need to do is deliver knowledge. So step one, find a fictitious Paul and Sue and find out how much equity they have and let them know. Hey, Paul and Sue, did you know you have $170,000 in equity? And let's talk about that. How do you get the equity out of your house? I made a call to a loan officer yesterday, and basically, well, I looked at my equity line. I've got an equity line on my house just in case I need money for something fun. And my equity loan is at 6.25% because I got it very high. So your equity interest rate is going to be heavily dependent on your credit score and your debt load, right? On that house. So we decided it's probably safer to just use 8% for a home equity interest rate. All right. So Paul and Sue have $170,000 they can tap into. Most home equity loans will lend up to 90% of the value. So 90% of $400,000 is 360,000. So if they've got 360,000, they can borrow out and they owe 230. The difference is they got $130,000 available to use, not the 170. The 170 is their equity, but the 130 is the money that they could borrow from a bank. And it's like a credit line. You're not going to use that interest, or you're not going to pay interest on that money unless you deploy it. Okay. So you can have line of credit. It sits there, costs you nothing until you take some money out, right? So I would use my line of credit to go buy a house, fix it up, sell it, pay off my line of credit, and then back to zero again. And it's like having a really nice credit card. But what's good about that is the interest on your home equity line of credit. Why does my camera keep moving? Interesting. My home equity line of credit is a home loan, which has interest, which is deductible. So my income tax goes down when I pay interest with using my home equity line of credit, which is better than using regular cash because I'm saving money. So my income tax is going down, which means I'm making more money, right? We have to write off our mortgage interest, and that's mortgage interest, home equity line of credit. Okay. So that equity that they have is doing them no good until they sell their house. When they sell their house, they have to, if it's a homesteaded property and they didn't make more than $500,000 as a married couple, they get tax-free gains. If they sell the house and they're single, it's $250,000 exempt. And if it's not their primary residence and they don't have homestead, they get to pay capital gains tax on their profit. So just little things like that. So Paul and Sue have now been enlightened by their realtor, and they know they've got $130,000 in disposable cash they can tap into. So where do you get a HELOC at? Banks are generally better. TD Bank, Banco ZK, Bank of America, they're super easy. Loan originators, loan officers, like Mike Wiles, he can do HELOCs too. Might get a little more complicated, but probably get more money too. Yes, Lauren, we're going to talk about home equity reviews as one of your assignments for the rest of this month. to give you guys something to work on while the holidays are coming. Okay. So you call your preferred loan officer or bank and you got pre-approved for a HELOC, and most banks do up to 90%. Okay. And once again, that 90% is not all being used. It's just available to be used. Okay. So now I went to just a zip code for fun yesterday and I looked up 33569, which is a Riverview zip code. And I was a little shocked. There are only 24 homes for rent. Where are my notes? Right here. 24 homes for rent. I'm sorry, 29 homes for rent. And they range from $1,800 a month for a 650 square foot mobile home. That's what we're talking about, Mike. We're going to get right there. Always get phone calls during training. So there's 29 homes for rent from $1,800 to $4,250. And the average number of the 29 was $2,300 a month. Okay. That's not a lot of money, but it is for rent, in my opinion. But there's only 29 houses for sale. So I did another lookup and I found there were 85 homes that have been leased in the last 6 months, which means that 20 homes a month are going under rent. So there's pretty good, we have a 2 month supply of rentals, basically. So if we don't put any more rentals on the market, we're going to run out of homes to rent in that zip code in 2 months, which means you're not going to sit on the market for a long time, but the house is looking good. Okay. So is there demand for rentals? Yes. What's another reason there's demand for rentals? Have you noticed these huge apartment complexes going up all over the place? Those hedge funds are seeing demand for rentals, and some people want to live in apartments and some people want to live in houses. So we give them options. Okay. Now, so we go looking in the market and let's see what's for sale. And I'm just going to give you an example, and this is going to be a real life example because not everything you look at is going to be golden. So that's where the assignment comes up for the end of class. So that we're going to find a $400,000 house. That asset could be leveraged to say $320,000. Interesting. So if I find a $400,000 house and I got to put 20% down, that's 80,000 bucks. How much do I have available in my line of credit? 130,000. So I don't have to use 130. I can just use 80. So I take 80,000 bucks of my home equity and I use that as my down payment and I buy an investment property. So it's a $400,000 house, $80,000 down. Then I got to get a loan for $320,000. Okay. So then we have a $320,000 loan on the house. Oh, I went back up to this point too. So when we're thinking about this profit we're taking out of this house, the $130,000, it was a 250 house, and pulling out 130 to 250 is like a 50% return. Oh, but wait, they didn't buy the house for $250,000. They bought the house with $50,000. They put 20% down when they bought it. So their $50,000 has now made $130,000 available to them 10 years later. Pretty cool way. And this is where knowledge comes in because a lot of people don't think this way because they don't do real estate like we do real estate. Okay, so let's get this straight. They used their $50,000 in 2015 to buy their home for $250. Now 10 years later it's worth $400. Over those 10 years, their mortgage has been reduced by their principal and interest payments. So ignoring the mortgage deduction, that $50,000 has now earned them $150,000 or 33% return over 10 years. Pretty darn good. All right. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to mine the MLS and search every listing for this criteria. And here's some facts. You got to identify, and this is where your brain comes in, where your knowledge to the public is going to help them figure this out. How much rent will the property be in? Well, you guys know how we do strategic pricing analysis for houses, right? You do the exact same study for a rental. You see what else is available for rent, and you compare it to what your house is. If your house is nicer, it should rent for faster and for more. If your house is not as nice, it should rent for less. So you do a comparative analysis on what's for rent and put it on the market and just make an estimate of what the rent's going to be. There's also property management companies that will help you identify houses that were in demand and how much they'll rent for. Okay. This is where your brain comes in and knowledge becomes important. What are its expenses? The property's going to have expenses, and the property should pay for itself. So there's going to be principal, there's going to be interest, there's going to be taxes, there's going to be insurance, there could be an HOA, and there could be a CDD tied into their taxes. So you figure out all those expenses and you add them all up. And then you say, is it marketable for rent as is, or do you need to make repairs to the property to make it more attractive so it rents for more? Right? You deduct that from the price, and you got to figure out how long those repairs are going to take because that's time off the market. Because once you close on the house, you can't do the repairs until you close. You're making mortgage payments on it when you're not renting it. So you can see where a good rental that's ready to rock and roll sells faster because somebody can put it right on the market immediately. All right. All right. 29 homes for rent. They range from 1,800 to 4,200. Median rent was 2,300. 85 homes released. The 2 month supply of homes. Pretty good market. Now it's time to analyze the listing price and come up with an offer price that works for an investor. Okay, here's what I want to talk to you about now. Guys, we need to wake up. There's asking prices and then there's sale prices. And we have a lot of homes that are sitting on the market longer than what the market is absorbing a normal house at because they are overpriced. And a lot of us are not conditioned to making offers on homes because we can't justify why we made that low offer. But as we study the market, we're going to see, like in my neighborhood, we've got all these houses that were on the market for over $1 million. And now a couple of them are selling at under $1 million. So now we've got comps that are justifying them. But then there's houses that are going on the market and selling for substantially more than what other comps are doing because they're updated and nicer. So same thing with the rental. Just markets are changing. You're going to have to search for the evidence to justify your point. So we look at the houses for sale in this example 33569, and we find the house is around 400,000 bucks. So you find one, you do the analysis to find out what's going to cost. And this is where it gets a little bit dicey for me. Okay, house is $400,000. Down payment's $80,000. I'm going to use it for my HELOC. Now, that HELOC comes with some expense. So at 8%, that's $6,400 a year in interest. So that's about over $500 a month, $533 a month exactly for interest on your HELOC, right? Your loan is 320,000 over 30 years at 8%. Investment loans are going to be a higher interest rate, higher than primary residence. So use 8% for that. So your loan is 320, your principal and interest is $2,348 a month. Your interest on your HELOC is $533 a month. You can write these down if you want. You're going to have to estimate taxes and insurance. Taxes and insurance on this house are going to be about $900 a month. All right. Now, I want you to think about this. Houses with flood insurance have to be really careful when they're rentals because why? If flood insurance is required, which it will be if you have a loan, flood insurance is going to be expensive. I'm looking at some houses that have flood insurance for $4,000 or $5,000 a year. Well, that's, $500 or $600 a month. That gets pretty expensive to add on to your rent, right? But you don't have to pay to keep your boat somewhere. So somebody might be willing to pay the extra because they got a place to keep their boat. All right. Then you add in your HOA or CDD. This house, for example, does not have one. This house is rent ready. It's clean. It's spotless. It's got new floors. It's got new appliances. It looks really pretty. But here's the challenge. The total monthly cost is $3,781 a month. Now, if the mean rent is $2,300 a month, this house is going to lose $1,400 a month. So guess what? You got to pass on it. Nope, it didn't work for me. Pass on it. Or make an offer that will pass this test. So Chris and I were helping an agent last week. Now they've got a house and it's a flood house and it hasn't been repaired yet. And they want to sell it, but it's not repaired. And the house is probably in the $300,000 range, and it is going to have flood insurance. So it's a $300,000 house fixed up. By the time we fix it up and figure all the stuff out, it's only worth in the low hundreds instead of, like just the fix up cost because of what it's going to take to fix it. So where the seller might say, well, it's worth 300. No, it's not. It's worth in the low hundreds because that's what it's going to take for an investor to want to buy it because the investor is going to want to make a return. All right. So this house, as an example, um, is going to cost $3,781 a month to own, which means you need a renter to pay $3,700 a month just to break even. Now, if you break even on a rental, think about this. Are you really breaking even? No, because your tenant is paying down your loan for you, right? But it's generally a good buffer to put in a 10% profit on top of the rental. So if this house was $3,700 a month, I personally would want to make about $378 a month on top of it as a profit, which would put me about $4,200 a month, which is the highest price rental on the market. And the one that was on the market in that area for 4,200 was a lot nicer than Paul and Sue's house. So once again, it's a pass. Or you make an offer that would justify. A house like this with rent like that, it would probably have to be the 250, 260, maybe $300,000 range. Sorry. But going back to my videos, so Robert Kiyosaki was talking about his rich dad, and his rich dad was an entrepreneur, and he was going to teach him how to grow wealth. So, and this is my assignment for you guys today for the rest of this month. He told Robert to find and analyze 100 properties until he found one that made sense. And this was back in the 70s, and he did the job and he found a condo. Condos generally make pretty good rentals because they're less expensive and people can afford them. So he found a condo in Oahu in Hawaii for 15,000 bucks. And the numbers worked out. He was able to buy it on his credit card and he made $25 a month profit, which in today's dollars would be a lot better than what people are making off a $15,000 investment. All right. So that's it. Do this 100 times over the next 100 days, find one, and then market the heck out of it. Now, this doesn't have to be your listing. It's just a house that would cash flow for an investor who wants to buy it, right? And you start publishing knowledge, hopefully videos, to your sphere of influence, your database, right? And you're going to give them little blips and blurbs about real estate investing. And you're going to educate them about getting home equity lines of credit, get that ball lined up, ready to strike. You don't have to use it. I'm not paying any interest for my line of credit. It's just sitting there ready to be used. But I'm thinking now I better use it because it's doing me no good sitting there, right? So then you're going to educate, educate, educate. In the meantime, you're going to be looking for properties that will cash flow. And when you find one, your database is going to see that you've been working on this project. And all of a sudden, you're going to say, hey, I found a house that will cash flow and throw off 10% a month. And I guarantee you, your phone's going to ring. And it might be somebody in your office that's going to buy it, right? So I think it's a great exercise. While the market is going to be a little bit slower because of the holidays, why don't we put ourselves to work? It didn't take me but maybe 20 minutes to analyze 33569 when I was doing this yesterday. All I did was look up what's for rent, what has leased in the last 6 months, did a little bit of math, found out there's a demand, looked at the houses that were available, and they were quite nice. They were nicely floored and nicely applianced, and they're going to rent, and they're pretty well priced. Somebody said, what's a good source to find rental prices? The good source is your brain, right? It's really nothing more than a comparison. Look at what else is available, what has currently leased, and compare using your brain which one is, if yours is nicer or not as nice, and guess. And then we just test the market and see if it works. So if you run it for $2,800 a month and it doesn't go in a month, you drop it to $2,600 a month. Little adjustments like that make a difference. Okay. Then this came to my attention last week also. An agent, now this is very simple, single family homes, right? We're going to get more complicated as we go on with this experience with multifamily, like duplexes or quads, things like that. But the same analysis works. I was hearing about a listing, and I kept asking questions and not getting the answers I was looking for. So we have a quadplex and it's got leases in it, and the leases add up to X. But the price on the quadplex, when you do a mortgage on it, it's going to cost more than the rents are going to be. So if we're trying to sell it as an investment property, unless it's got a whole lot of appreciation built into it, it's probably not going to be attractive to an investor because it's not going to cover itself as far as cash flow goes, right? And I'm not telling you this is going to be easy. I'm saying look at 100 homes. We got, what did I say, 13 days left? No, 17 days till Christmas. So 6 plus 17, 23 days left. If you did three properties a day and just look at them online, don't have to go look at the physical property. It's the exercise and the brain thought I want you to get used to. Here's a house. Basically, a $400,000 house is going to cost about $3,700 a month. Now, that's all 100% financed house, right? If you've got cash, you don't need to make 8% on your own cash, but you could get 8% of your cash. So why would you use your cash and not get yourself a return? So this is 100% financing, no money down, no real cash changes hands. You're using equity that your house gave you, but you are paying interest on it. And so this is a bad example, not going to work, right? So that is a for sale house, right? And then you look at the for sale numbers and you have these conversations with the seller. We've ruled out the entire investor population with the high price ranges that a lot of these markets are in, but they're still there and there's still demand. So what I'd like you to do, we're still a half hour, over the next 23 days, look at three houses a day. That'll get you close to 100. You'll have this formula down pat. I'll send you my notes after this class. Have the formula down pat, and you'll get really good at just seeing a property and then estimating its worth. And then don't be afraid. I want to have this conversation and we'll end. Don't be afraid to make an offer that's based on fact. All right. If it's a home that is a good rental property and it's been on the market for a long time and nobody's buying it, there's something wrong with it. So if you run the analysis on that house and you find out it would rent for this, and in order to rent for that in cash flow, it's only worth this, make the offer of this. See, a lot of people bought their house for 250 like Paul and Sue, and they'd like to get 400 for it now. But if they only got 320, it's still a pretty hefty profit on the 250 they made. And not everybody's trying to maximize their dollar. Sometimes they just want to get the house sold. But everybody's afraid to make an offer at 320 because they don't want to piss off Paul and Sue. But Paul and Sue should be the ones to decide if they want to get pissed off or not. You didn't even give them the opportunity to get pissed off. Title Toolbox and IMAP can be used to search as well. Very good comments in the thing, right? So I want you to also run this same analysis on any of your active listings and find out if your listing is attractive to an investor or not. All right. And if you are marketing for sale or rent, make sure the ends justify the means or adjust accordingly. Example, we have a listing, a condo downtown, and I ran the numbers on the condo, and it's cut $9,000 a month to own it by the time you have the mortgage and the condo fees and all that type of stuff. And the owner has it for sale and for rent. He's got it for sale for I forget the number, but he'll rent it for $7,000 a month. So if I buy that condo, it's $9,000 a month, but I can rent it from him for $7,000 a month. And if something goes wrong, I call him. If I buy it, I get the privilege of paying $9,000 a month and I got to take care of it, but I lose the potential appreciation. So there's inequity there. If it's for rent for 7,000, it's going to cost 9,000 to buy it. It's probably not going to sell unless the rent comes up or the price comes down until they equalize. So that's your real life real estate today. I hope it makes sense. And YouTube has some information on it, but you got to turn that information into knowledge. And I think it'd be a great job for all realtors to do an analysis like this. It doesn't take long. Find an area you're happy about that you think there's a lot of rentals. Look at how many for sale. Look at how many for rent. Find the prices. Do the rental analysis on the cost of getting money. Start talking to your database about it. Get them primed and ready to strike. Everybody should have a home equity line of credit, in my opinion, available to them. It literally costs nothing to get, maybe $100. Most banks even pay for the appraisal. And that's it. You're ready to strike. And, we don't want people going buying jet skis and RVs like they did in 2005. But if you could use your money to work for you, and then, that works pretty well. So Paul and Sue bought it 10 years ago for 250. It's now worth 400. They're predicting homes over time usually appreciate about 5% a year. So 400,000 at 5% would be 80,000 a year. No, 20,000 a year. Over 10 years, that's another 200 grand. So you're just building wealth and assets. Yeah, of course, you got to budget in repairs and replacements and stuff like that. But that's where you get the education to turn it into knowledge to help people go. So if you would like, I will send out my Google Sheet notes to you today, and you can play this around and take me up on the challenge. Do a little bit of research, market research this rest of this year, and start talking to people about it. And you'll start building a little club of investor people that want to deal with you. So that's all I got for today. Real life real estate. We've got a broker forum today for the Florida Association of Realtors. It's going to run today and tomorrow from 10 to 12. So I'll be on that. So tune in for the broker briefing tomorrow, and I'll give you some updates on what FAR is saying is going to happen to our real estate environment. All right, that's all I got. Happy Monday, everybody.